And good evening. Welcome, my fellow lovers of love, for this excursion down a stream of consciousness towards the river of tranquility and on towards the lake of love.
Yay!
So we got one out today. So we're all going to have to excuse Madam Lovey over there. She's burning on two candles, both ends today. She's running on little sleep, and I'm running on disturbed sleep.
I got 3 hours sleep. Yeah.
And I'm running on disturbed sleep today. So if we drag a little bit, it's you know why. Let's just,
Yeah.
you know why.
You know why.
So it's been an interesting week. You know, I've spent most of the last few weeks essentially on rest and relaxation, taking care of myself. But, you know, I'm not completely disconnected from the world. And we saw how there are people who are now beginning to understand that you have to take care of yourselves first. I mean, we have some stories lined up that we're going to talk about here coming forward about people who have decided that some of the tasks of their careers, I'm talking highly successful people, aren't worth it. And we've also seen in kind of the labor market itself, people are not accepting job offers for jobs that are not low paying, because many low paying places have no problems hiring people. The work environment has to be rewarding, or at least not soul crushing.
Yeah.
You know, someplace like Chick-fil-A is not having trouble hiring people, but Burger King's are. Well, and McDonald's are. Well, that's telling you something. The tasks of the job are essentially the same. So there's something about the work environment that is attracting people. I mean, the pay and the work and the task are essentially the same. And so people are deciding that they're taking care of themselves, that they no longer have to accept whatever crappy work environment. I read an article that said 40% of workers are considering leaving their job, not because of money. Another study said people are willing to take huge pay cuts to work from home.
Well, that's saying something, isn't it? There's been a trend lately. People are not signing up for abuse.
Yeah. Well, the old employment model is dying.
Uh-huh.
And sadly, there's too many of us who don't know it. I mean, many people like the stability. They like the theoretical stability of traditional employment. But there's a lie to it.
A lie?
Well, sure. There's the kind of lie. You go up, you get a good job at some company, you work your way up to the top, you retire with the golden watch. But if you start that at 25, you retire at 65, that's 40 years. How many companies last 40 years? 10%, 20% maybe. It's a lie. It's not a deliberate lie, except it is. I mean, the companies themselves think they're going to last 40 years. No one plans for their company to die after 20, 25 years. But the reality is, for most companies, your purpose of existing dies after 20 years. And if you don't evolve, if you don't change, you become seers. And it's not so different for us human beings. Are you the person you thought you would be at 25? Are you that person now? Or are you a vastly different human being than you thought you were going to be at 25?
Well, the market changes and evolves.
Yeah, the world changes.
Yeah.
You change.
Yeah.
What you want changes. Your experience changes what you want. I mean, it's just the way the world works. There's no way around it. As you go through life, you know, the experiences you go through, the education, the knowledge, the trauma, all of that bundled together changes what your outlook is, changes what you want in life. And then, you know, age changes what you want in life. At 25, I wanted, you know, a family, the white picket fence, the whole kind of theoretical thing. Well, now I'm 50. That part of me is past. So now what? I no longer want the children and the little children and the white picket fence. And painting a white picket fence is a pain in the butt. Children take a lot of energy. I've already raised my 5 kids. There's now what? Now I've got my path. I've got my plan. But the point is that everybody asks that question. Everybody goes through that evolution. And it's not just humans, it's businesses, it's governments, it's societies, it's cultures. Everything has that evolution. Where what you were is no longer what you want to be. Or you've become something that you don't want to be, and you have to find your way back. That happens as well. You find yourself lost. So to kind of cover that, we had this. We'll just start right here from the top. This is talking about this lady who has a bachelor's degree, has 4 jobs to make ends meet, and she's not working in a field for her bachelor's degree. And she says it's not worth it. She says she doesn't feel it's worth it. Well, there's 2 questions. One, if you took a bachelor's degree for educational purposes, not for career purposes, that's fine. But you have to understand that you're going to have to build your career based upon your other talents, not based upon your bachelor's degree. Your bachelor's degree will still open doors.
Always does.
The fact that you have that degree will open more doors than if you don't. It's a screener. It's not even that it actually means what the hell degree you have in. It helps you get, if you got looking at 2 people who are similar on paper, one has a degree, one doesn't. The person with the degree is more likely to get hired than not. Right? If it's a 60% to 40% chance.
Yes.
If all things else are relatively equal.
Right.
Now, the question is it worth the cost of a modern degree? Not just monetary cost, the cost in time. It takes 4 years, 5 years to get those things down. Traditional way.
Traditionally, yes.
And how much? $60,000? $50,000-$60,000? Okay, if you're poor, you get most of that paid for. But still. Now you can go to an online school, something like Western Governors University, or there's a handful of them. And you can do that much cheaper. If you're poor, FAFSA pays for almost all of it. Just FAFSA alone. So you can get that done for free, and you can do it on your own time, either fast or slow. Or you can spend that time as an apprentice and get that same 4 years of experience, depending upon your field. Now, there's some fields you can't. You can't be a doctor through a apprenticeship. It might be a good idea to try that, but you can't be a doctor through an apprenticeship. You've got to go through traditional means.
You can be a lawyer through
apprenticeship.
Through apprenticeship, yes.
Yeah, there's lots of things you can do through an apprenticeship, or through traditional training. Or you want to be a welder, you can go be a welder, and you can go join the welders unions, and they train you. There's ways to go about, if you're a physical labor. But if you're someone who wants to use mental labor, who wants to sell your mental labor, that's a different task. Physical labor is easier to train people for than mental labor. And we don't think of it that way. People sit in an office and we talk about pencil pushers, or now they're keyboard warriors, or whatever you want to call them. People who sit in a cubicle all day, they're mental workers. They use this instead of these, instead of your muscles. They use your brain instead of your muscles. People who work on construction sites, and laborers and coal miners. It's not that they don't use their brain, but they're generally hired for their strong backs and strong muscles. And people who work in offices are people who have a strong tolerance for that. Lots of people can't work in an office in a cubicle setting. You just can't do it. It sucks their soul. Which, again, goes back to the 60%, 40% of people, 45% of people, whatever it was, that, looking to quit their job. So the question becomes, is...
Well, my advice is to just keep searching. You can't give up.
No. So here's the kind of winning quote for her. My degree sits mainly untouched and forgotten since I earned it in 2010. It's hardly the topic of any conversation, and it's certainly not a point of pride.
Oh, that's sad.
Well, it's because she's facing tons of debt. She doesn't feel like she's using it or using any of them, and so for her, it's just an anchor. And it's a bad way to look at it, because they've sold this degree as an economic thing rather than a self-education thing. She's a better human being because she went to school.
Yes.
And maybe she's not using her degrees directly, but I'll guarantee you she's using them indirectly. Guarantee it. You can't not. You can't go through that type of education and not use it, at least indirectly. It's just not possible. So anyway, my advice would be to take a step back, take stock about the benefits that it actually has given you. Yeah, okay, you have some economic issues because of it. And there's some problems that, aren't your own. You were sold a bill of goods about the expense of that thing.
Yeah, that's what I would be upset about.
Yeah. So the other one is, and this is a big national news, and I'm going to butcher her name. Naomi Osaka, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. She's a tennis player. I don't know if she's number one, number two in the world, but anyway, she's one of the top tennis players in the world, clearly top 5. And she refused to do the press mandates after her win at French Open, and now she's not going to go to the Wimbledon because she wants to take care of herself and she doesn't want to deal with the press duties. It's the press duties she doesn't want to deal with. She's perfectly fine playing tennis. She just doesn't want to deal with press duties, which I can understand. The press is the worst part of having to deal with these kind of things.
Yeah, but isn't it part of the job?
Well, yeah, it's a double-edged sword. The only reason you get paid is because people watch you, and the only reason people can watch you is because people report on you. So maybe the question is, why do we allow the press to behave so uncivilized? We know the way the press behaves has a unintended consequence on people. And the sports press especially, because there's literally, the world's not going to end because a tennis player doesn't talk to the press. The world's not going to end if the tennis match doesn't happen. It's not like while it's news, it's entertainment news. And so because of that, its importance is different. I'm not going to say it's unimportant, because entertainment, especially when you have time that is no longer spent, you don't have to spend all your time on basic necessities. Entertainment becomes more and more important as human beings, because you're not focused on just feeding yourself. Once you get past just feeding yourself, all things become possible. Once human beings progressed past being able to feed themselves, and stop being hand to mouth, society progressed, exploded everywhere. And then when they had droughts and famines and stuff that disintegrated again. It's the ability to have surplus food, allows for all these things, and they become necessary. I mean, you can go back to World War II, and you still had people playing baseball. They still had entertainment because those people who are working in the factories, they needed something to do when they weren't working in the factories. They need something to relieve the stress, some way to have something more than just being a cog. Those poor soldiers had to do it, but it's harder at home in a sense because you don't have the adrenaline of I might die to keep you going. So you have to keep them. And it's not, the whole bread and circuses thing. It's one of the most misunderstood quotes.
What?
Bread and circuses. Give them bread and circuses and they won't revolt. They think that it was an attempt to, people view that as an attempt to control the populace. But it's not what it was. It was an observation that if people are fed and entertained, they have no reason to revolt. They're happy. It's the bread and circuses comments is really about. It's not that if I give them bread and circuses, they won't revolt, because they will if they're unhappy. But bread and circuses made the Romans happy. Now, of course, the problem is when you're just giving away breads and circuses, you eventually run out of other people's money. That's what happened in Rome. As long as they were out expanding and bringing in money from the places they were raiding, they could afford all that. The minute they stopped expanding, they ran out of other people's money, and the bread and circuses stopped. Or they became at the expense of the general populace. Well, that's not going to be very happy if you have circuses at the expense of your bread. Or you get bread at the expense of your circuses. So, but it's the point is that this young woman has decided to take care of herself, and on an individual level, and that's all great. She's fully supportive, and she should do it. The press should behave themselves, ask better questions, ask smarter questions, stop being stupid. God, especially the sports press. They ask the dumbest ass questions. Like, can we ask real questions? Don't be. Maybe our focus shouldn't be on her wanting to take care of herself. Maybe our focus should be on why we are driving them to not play a game they love, sacrifice potentially millions of dollars in prize money, sponsorship money, because what we're asking of them is too hard on their emotional well-being. Maybe it's not even the press we should be questioning. Maybe it's what we ask the press to do. Now, there is a counter argument to that. Sports media is dying. All media is dying. So maybe we have told the press we don't like how they're behaving. And the question is, are they listening? That's a deeper question. All right, and that's one I don't actually have an answer to. Okay, so the other one is trauma. Recognizing the lifelong impact of trauma. Do we want to come back to that one later?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do this one now, because this is actually a good thing to talk. Because there's an article here we're talking about someone's toxicity was a cry for help when they were at their lowest. And that's an interesting concept, because it's something we often...
It is an interesting concept. That's not something we often think about.
No, it's not something... I like to think of myself as fairly self-aware and fairly aware of other things. I hadn't considered it. that when someone's at their lowest, their toxic behavior looks like they're trying to push somebody away, but it's a incompetent cry for help. They don't know how else to do
They
it.
don't know how else to do it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And maybe even if it's not, they're at their lowest, they can't do it any other way. That's the only way they're having to interact. And they need someone who loves them to understand that this is extreme out of character behavior and need intervention.
Yeah.
But that is such a hard step to take as a friend, family, loved one. When do you do an intervention and when not? I mean, how do you know?
Well, I would consult a professional.
Yeah, but
They could guide you through that process.
well, a professional can help, but ultimately you're still the one who has to make the decision and has to deal with the repercussions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can gather family together and make it a family decision if your family is somewhat functional. I suppose there's that, but it's a tough thing. I mean, we've both been through the mental health ringers. We've both lived long lives with, many connections, shall we say.
Yeah.
And so we've seen a lot, even though if we haven't experienced it. And it's a tough thing because it's hard on everybody. It's hard on absolutely everybody around me. And that decision on when to intervene, when to not intervene, how much to intervene, and are there right answers? And you don't know until maybe years later if you did the right thing. I mean, those are some of the things that, make life very difficult. But when people get to that end of their rope and they are essentially begging in the best way they know how, and it's up to us, isn't it? Their friends, their family, the loved ones, kind and compassionate strangers, to try and help. And the key word there is try. You can only try. You can try to do the right thing. You can try to do the best things you can do. But, it's hard to know if you're doing the right thing. But there is a clue. If your behavior is ethical and civilized, then you're probably at least not going to do much harm. If you're focused around kindness, compassion, and ethical behavior, you're not going to do much harm, even if you're wrong. You may do some, because, you could have done the wrong thing. But you would have done it with kindness and compassion, so you wouldn't have pushed hard, so you wouldn't have had, me. One of the things I believe in is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So whatever you do, you should do the least possible to get the response you need. Push as softly and as gently, as kindly, and as compassionately as you can. Because then you will get that back.
Yes, you do. You are that way.
Because that's what you get back. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's a fundamental rule of life. It's not just a rule of physics, it's a rule of life. It works everywhere it's tried. Now, the reactions sometimes isn't predictable. That's a different question. But there is a reaction. Sometimes the reaction isn't seeable because it gets lost in the noise of life. But there is a reaction. All right, so we got 5 minutes for halftime. Let's go back and do that other one real quick. The traumatized thing.
Okay.
Because we're just going to skip to the end. What do you do after you've been traumatized? You're sitting here, let's say you're 30 years old. You've dealt with trauma in your life. You've had a bunch of trauma in your life, and you're now ready to deal with it. You know, the question becomes, what do you do? Now what?
No way.
You know, you're sitting there crying over your ice cream, watching a crying movie. Or if you're a guy, you're screaming at the car because a bolt is stuck. You know, who knows? And you're just now ready to deal with all this internal chaos. You're just ready to deal with it. You're tired of the negative impact it's having on your life. And you just want to be better. And what do? Well, first thing is, accept that. The very first thing I would suggest is that you accept it. That yes, I'm traumatized. The hardest thing we all come is we all lie to ourselves. That I'm okay. I'll get
Or we
through.
minimize it. Oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Oh, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time. That's a big one.
It was a long time ago. I've already moved past it. No, you haven't.
No, you haven't.
You know why? Because you're contemplating it right now. Now, it doesn't mean that people who have moved past it don't think about it, but they don't contemplate on it. It pops up, they know how to deal with it, and it moves on. They've already kind of dealt with it. Doesn't mean it doesn't pop up, but it's just they have almost an automatic response when it does. That's how you know you've dealt with it. It's those who every time it pops up, you have to deal with it again. It means you haven't actually dealt with it. And, you know, whether it's professional help, self-help, you know, realize you're starting at square zero. It's going to be a long journey. And that you're going to live with that for the rest of your life. It's now part of who you are. And as hard as it's going to be, you're going to have to let that be part of who you are. But it doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to color all of your life. You can become like your little toe, like a pinky toe. You know, it's there, it exists. When you stub it, it hurts like hell. But for the most part, you don't notice it. That's what these things can become. It takes a lot of work. There's no shortcut. You know? There's lots of self-help books. There's lots of people like us who talk things through. There's professional counselors. You know, it's never been easier to find someone to talk to find a professional to talk to. You can do it online. You can do it through Zoom. They have apps. They're now inexpensive and accessible. The only excuse is the person enemy. And it's a courageous step. It really is. It takes a courageous step to go seek help.
Yes, it does.
And so when you make that choice, you understand that is the first step of becoming stronger. You have taken the first step simply by deciding to do it. You are no longer at step 0. You are now at step 1. Progress. You are on the path to getting better. And with that, we are going to take our break. We will be back in about 5 minutes.
Ready.
All right, and we are back for the second half. You know, we went to the whole first half of the show, and I didn't do a single banner or things or anything. We didn't talk any of our things. We didn't tell people to go to latenightLove.us. We didn't tell them they could find our podcast at anchor.fm/late night love and on most other popular podcast networks. And we're here every Saturday night at 10. And we're going to start doing those daily doses again, I think probably in July. I think is what my goal is.
Okay.
I'm going to start releasing them, which means we want to start recording some.
Okay.
Just time to try to get back to some normalcy after the chaos of the last couple of months of my, whatever the heck that has been. Lord. I find if there's a bureaucratic hole that can be found, I just say I find it. We can leave it at that. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, man. You can send me a love letter at love@midnightlove.us.
Sure.
You can find me at Twitter at JazzRack, or you can always find us at our Facebook page, our MeWe page, Minds page, Locals, and all that good fun stuff. Just search us, and you can find us on your social media. And I think that's it for the business aspect of it. All right. So we're off. Okay, so which one of these questions do we want to start off? We've got a laundry list. Do we have questions for the second half of our show? So, which ones do you want, love?
Well, I like the first one. I try not to laugh. Is there really a point to life after 30?
No, there's not.
No, just lay down. Just lay down and give up.
Yes.
Life starts at 30.
The point to life after 30 is not much different than the point to life at 25. I'm not sure. I mean, what? Do you think life is about, what? Going to nightclubs and partying? And if that's your life, if that's your view of life, it's like, you know, being in school and having beer pong and doing those kind of things, well, then you're right. After 30, that's nothing but downhill, right? Just simple knees and joints and muscles, and the deterioration of your physical body starts at about 30. So, I mean, if your aspect is to play, you might want to know. After 30, it's a downhill. It's essentially downhill, so the no. But the reality is, life gets better after 30. That's just when you're starting to get smart. And it's not because you're not smart, it's because you don't have enough experience. It's simple experience. You haven't experienced enough of the world to have a good reference to make consistently good decisions. It's just pure ignorance. There's no other way around to solve that type of ignorance other than experience. And you only get experience by living, and that only starts to happen until you hit about 30. You just don't have enough experience yet. Now, if you go back in earlier days, you know, where you started your life at 12, you know, you're an adult at 12, out the house, off, married, starting your own family. You know, okay, 30 was different. 30 was when your kids were getting old. It was when your kids were getting pushed off. But of course, you died at 35. We now die at 80. Give or take. So you got a long time to enjoy life after 30. It's not over. It's the same as it was last year. Life after 30 is no different than life at 29. It is exactly what you make of it. That's what life after 30 is. Exactly what you make of it. All right, so which one you got and what next? You're controlling questions today.
Well, I'm just taking them down the line. My daughter's only goal in life is to become a housewife. How do I change her mind and encourage her to get a career?
Well, why would you?
It's backup.
But you didn't ask her to say, hey, go get educated so you have a backup plan. That's not what she said. She wants her to change her mind. So the question is, I want to be a doctor. Well, you shouldn't be a doctor because I want you to be. You should be a housewife. Would you tell them that? If you wouldn't tell them that, then why should you tell them that you should be? What's wrong with being a housewife? Being a housewife, raising a child, helping someone else become highly successful, it's a rewarding thing. That's why so many women have wanted to do it over the course of their lifetime. It's actually highly rewarding. And we've just been talking about how people are willing to take huge pay cuts for lifestyle choices so they have a better life.
That's it exactly.
She's not interested in money. She's interested in quality of life. Now, the question is, go get yourself educated so you're more attractive to somebody. You can carry on a highly complex conversation. If something goes wrong, divorce or death or something, you're not left with nothing. You have something to fall back on. That's a good discussion to have, but that's a different discussion.
And you can still pursue an education along those lines. Home economics is a career choice.
Yeah. And especially now, you can become a podcast host helping other moms. Careers will exist for her that we don't even know will exist
today. Yeah.
So instead of stomping on her dreams, help her achieve them more fully. Okay, how do you become the best housewife you can be? What kind of education do you need? To both attract the type of person that you want, right? Because you want to attract the type of person, so you're going to need to be able to carry on a conversation. You're also going to be able to manage a household in a complex environment, which means you probably should take some, at least take some basic economics courses, maybe even an accounting class.
Yeah.
So you can actually run the household. Because running a household, what is it? Women control most of the spending. Like 80% of spending, household spending, comes from women. Because they're the ones who are at home. They're the ones who make the house decisions. Yeah, a lot of times they ask their husbands, but their husbands know better than to say no if they can't help it. If they say no, they, for the most part, and it plays out in who makes economic decisions. The day-to-day economic decision. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a housewife. Help her become the best housewife she can be, and it will also create the backup that she needs to be secure, that she's not dependent on somebody else if things go wrong. You wouldn't tell her she couldn't be a doctor. Don't tell her she can't be a housewife. Help her become the best housewife possible, and she will succeed in ways that we can't imagine. And she'll be mentally healthy. All right. So what's the next one?
My child just called me sus.
Uh-huh.
What does this mean, and what do I do?
Okay. Sus just means you're suspicious, or you're suspect. You're behaving suspiciously. It's a gamer tag. Usually means for people who are cheating, but you know how these things leach out.
It's a gamer tag?
Yeah, it's a gamer thing, but it's leaching out. You know how some of these things they leach out into popular.
Of course. Yeah.
It started as a gamer thing. When someone's cheating, hacking, yeah,
they're sus.
They're suspect. It's suspicious suspect. Yeah, and so what they're doing, whatever you were doing, they're saying it's suspicious. They're saying you're thinking you're hiding something, and just ignore it. There's nothing to do. They're just engaging in themselves. What were you doing? Were you hiding something? If you were kind of hiding something, or not telling them something, because sometimes there's things you don't want your children to know. Maybe you're planning a a romantic evening with your spouse, and it's none of your children's damn business, and so, but they can tell you're kind of doing something underneath the scenes. And why are you acting so? Yeah, 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 yeah. So 99 times out of 100, man, they're just engaging in life, and let's just have some fun with it. That's how I would deal with it. But good for asking the question. What the hell does this mean? All right, so what's this next one?
Should you let a 13-year-old nephew change your daughter's diaper? He said he wants to learn how to do it. Should I let him?
Well, I think that depends on the nephew. I don't think there's a universal answer. Some people are just interested in learning how to change the diaper. Some people are more kid-friendly. You know, they're just more interested in that kind of thing. And, you know, others may have, you know, maybe a sign, maybe not. I wouldn't want to assume it is a sign of something deeper.
But what if they're curious?
Yeah, well, it may just be, you know, it depends. That's what I mean. It so sorely depends on the child. You're just going to have to use your best judgment on the individual child. I would suspect that this child is comfortable around young children and they're just curious. Maybe they're going to want to start a family at a young age. If there's a clue to watch for, that's what I'd be watching for. You know, people mature at different ages and they want to learn practical skill. It's a practical skill. It just is. And some people want to learn as much as they can. And some people want to learn about baking. Other people want to learn how to take care of kids. So, I don't know. You have to know. You have to know the child at hand. If there's a reason to suspect, well, then fine. But you're standing there watching. You're helping them learn. I'm not entirely sure what you're afraid of at that stage. A first-time diaper changer is as dangerous as any first-time diaper changer, whether you're 13 or 33. It's gonna go wrong.
Especially if you got a squirmer.
Yeah, but I don't know.
You could always offer up a doll.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I guess my question is there a reason for you to be worried? Is there something that's concerning you other than the fact that it's just a 13-year-old boy? I mean, would you be concerned if it was a 13-year-old girl?
That's a very good question.
And if you wouldn't, then you're being sexist. Now, if there's a personality trait about this boy that sends off alarm bells, it's a different question. But if it's just because it's just a boy and it's unusual because it's a boy, don't stop being sexist.
Okay, I think this next one is my favorite.
Okay.
I bought my 16-year-old daughter an Audi car, and she was complaining I didn't buy the Tesla Model S. Should I return the car and tell her to wait until next year to get the Tesla?
You can return the car.
You return the
car.
Buy
a fucking Yugo. That's what she's getting. Oh, you're gonna complain about the car you got? All right. You know, either A, I would be sorely tempted just to take the car back.
I would take the car back.
But as a father, I said, no, I promised you a car. I'm gonna get you a car. It's going to be a hoopty. I'm going to pay $500 for it, and it's going to barely be safe. It's going to be safe, and that's it. It's going to have 3 different colors. You know, the fenders are not going to match. The rims are all going to be different, and I ain't giving you no money to pretty it up because you need to learn some humbleness. Now, as the parent, you need to spend some time in the mirror because you created that mess. That's a mess. No, you do never buy that child a Tesla.
Ever.
Not at this point.
Ever.
Well, people change. But at this stage, no. There's no way in hell you upgrade the car. No way in hell. You either appreciate what you've been given or you get nothing. See, my kids always appreciated what they were given, but we grew up poor. They grew up poor, and so they always
So did
appreciated,
I.
and so they always appreciated everything. And so if you have resources and your child doesn't appreciate those things, it means you didn't do something. You didn't make them understand that they're lucky and that they need to be humble when they are granted this type of, despise the word privilege, this type of gift. Because that's what
It's a gift.
it's a gift.
It's a gift. Is this how you act about with a gift?
Yeah. You talk about looking a gift horse in the mouth. You never look a gift horse in the mouth. Well, you do because you want to find out how old it is, but you don't complain about it. You say thank you, and if you must, you sell it for glue. Right? You deal with it because someone cared about you. And your 16-year-old daughter. Now, let's not be too hard. It's a relatively common 16-year-old reaction. You know, I wanted the red one. Well, tough. They didn't have the red one. They only had the black one. Deal with it. But the fact that she asked for an upgrade, and the fact that you are considering taking the car back and waiting a year to get the upgrade, taking the car back is, I don't know. I don't necessarily like completely taking it back. You promise them something, and then it's kind of changing the rules. Unless you told them, if you give me a bad attitude, I'm going to take it back. You know, you're changing the rules in the middle of the game. I don't particularly like that. But I'm paying the insurance. I'm buying the car. I can buy whatever I damn well want to give you. I can take that back, resell it, and buy you a Aztec.
Aztec.
Buy you a Pinto or a Mustang 2 or some
Dodge Start.
Yeah, buy you some god awful ugly looking thing, and you can drive around in that with no air conditioning, no radio. Yeah. And a manual transmission. Yeah. No luxuries in your life. You're going to have to work to get something new now. Yeah. But
It's a life lesson moment.
yeah, don't fail. Because, at 16, I don't want to be too hard on any parent, because at 16, sometimes there's nothing you could have done to prevent that type of an attitude. They're just going to have it. But it's that second part. Wait next year to get a Tesla that makes me suspect that this attitude is partly a parenting problem. Because you know how I dealt with this kind of thing. But I want a Tesla. It's good to want things.
It's good to want things.
It builds character when you don't get it.
You tell me that today.
It's one of my most favorite sayings. It's good to want things. It builds character when you don't get it. God, you know how many times I said that over the decades. Forgot where I picked that one up from. But none of these things are my own. All right, so what do we got next? Oh, this one's a good one.
Oh, yeah. How do I react to my daughter postponing her wedding reception until her dad, my ex-husband, gets fully vaccinated? I want it to happen without him attending. Daughter told me she needs him to be there for her and to walk her down the aisle. Okay, well, that's how she envisions her wedding.
Yeah, well, here's what. It's good to want things. Builds character when you don't get it. It's her day. It's her wedding. She gets to make these choices.
Yes.
You're just going to have to sit down and shut up. Put on a smiley face and be civil. It's only for a few hours. It's only for a few hours. If you can't be civil for your daughter for a few hours, then don't go. So what's the question? Can you be civil for a couple hours for your daughter, or can't you? I can understand not wanting to spend a couple hours with your ex.
It's a wedding. You don't have to hang out with them a lot.
Yeah, you say hi and you go hang out on the other
You
side.
you get your pictures taken. That's exactly what happened at my oldest daughter's wedding. I sat way across the room from him. I sat with my back to him, so I didn't have to look at his ugly face.
And other than that, you'd be perfectly civil.
And I was perfectly civil.
Yeah,
because it was my daughter's wedding.
Is it that hard? Okay, so I want to close with the humanity one. So let's skip to the next one.
Okay. What will happen to humanity 500 years from now?
Now we skip down to the end. Skip the next one as well, because we've got 10
Okay,
minutes.
well, you read the next one then, because I'm lost.
All right. Why does my daughter not like me hugging her? My 14-year-old daughter barely gives me hugs anymore and only does it if I ask. She does not like it when people touch her very much. Should I be worried?
She's 14.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's perfectly normal.
That's perfectly normal.
Yeah, her body's changing. She's changing. She's probably not very comfortable with it. And she's also, if you do want to be worried about something, be worried about maybe touch sensitivity, maybe an anxiety issue or something of that nature. You might want to have that discussion. So maybe there's something else there that she doesn't understand because she's 14. And so you have to ask why. What happens to you when you're hugging somebody? What are you thinking about? What happened? What runs through your head? Disassociate yourself from it, because you're going to take it emotionally if you put you in it. So you got to ask about her, how she experiences the hug. It's not about you, because clearly she's experiencing the hug differently than you are. Now it could just be typical 14-year-old thing, or she could be developing an anxiety thing and she's touch sensitive. Because I know when I'm having bad anxiety days, I become touch sensitive sometimes. And so, there might be something to worry about, but my suspicion is she's just 14. But it's a good question to have, and it's a good start. Make sure she also sends a signal that you're concerned to her about her mental health, her well-being, and keeps those lines of communication open, which are hard to do at teenage years. Focus on her, not you. Hey, I noticed that you don't like to hug people, that you don't like touch. Can you explain to me what's going through your head? Because I'm just worried about it. Is it a teenage angst thing? If that's fine, that's one thing. But maybe is there an anxiety issue connected with it? And having that connection, having that conversation, is, even if it's just a 14-year-old angst, it keeps doors open later on.
Yes, it certainly does.
It sends the message that you're more concerned about them than they are about how it feels you. Because you're the adult. Behave like one. It's not about you. You're the one who has control of your emotions. 14-year-olds don't. If you haven't learned yet, you can help them. Okay. All right. Let's go to the 12-year-old thing. 12-year-old son got someone pregnant. Did I do something wrong? Maybe, but I doubt it. Your 12-year-old son got in the hands of a predator, and predators can happen from any gender.
Yes, I can.
12-year-old isn't sophisticated enough to make those kinds of decisions. Whether it's a 12-year-old boy or a 12-year-old girl. We don't think of a 12-year-old boy being abused, but that's what happened.
That is what happened.
And we don't even think about it. It's a tragedy. It's our young men are disposable. And it's just another sign. It's the same trauma that a young girl would have gone through. Now, the young girl's trauma extends 9 months, the rest of her life, while the young boys may not. So, but still, it's a child. That shouldn't be our concern. You know, our concern should be that individual child, not those other issues. That somebody else has it worse. So what? Somebody else will always have it worse. Get your child some counseling and file a police report. That's my view on that. All right. So let's get this last one. We've got 5 minutes.
What would happen to humanity 500 years from now? Will we colonize another planet or will we become extinct?
Well, to end the, is it all worth it? We don't know.
I'd like to think that we will.
I mean, colonizing another planet may not be realistically possible. Maybe the only planet we colonize is our own. Maybe we go into the ocean. You know, for those of us who are Isaac Asimov's fans, you know, the planet of Trantor was essentially one big city, underground, miles underground. Maybe we don't leave home. Maybe we change home. Maybe we just colonize the moon. Maybe we build domes on Mars. Or maybe we span the stars. Or maybe an asteroid hits tomorrow and everything resets, as it's done numerous times in the past.
Yeah, it certainly has.
There's no telling the future. That's why it's called the future. That's why we take care of ourselves now, so we're prepared for the unknown. That's why we educate ourselves now, so we're prepared for the unknown. That's why we love each other now, so we can deal with the unknown. It's why we build our family structures. It's why we build our relationships. It's why we build civilization. So we can be prepared for the unknown. We've learned over human evolution that being unprepared is dangerous. And the question becomes, how do you prepare for the unknown? By becoming the best you can be. So no one else gets to judge that for you. You have that judgment all on yourself. You get to judge, is this worth it? You get to judge, where am I going? You get to judge, have I done enough? The world doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, the only one that you're the one who has to look at yourself. You're the one who has to understand that I've made the world a better place, or I haven't. And what do we want to do? Do we want to be better? Do we want the world to be a better place? Because what's the alternative? The world's a better place, or it's not. You become a better person, or you don't. That's the choice. You either strive to become a better person, or the world passes you by. Is it all worth it? It's only an answer for you. It's an answer for the mirror. It's a question for the mirror. I'm sorry. There is no answer. There isn't. Because you will get a different answer on a different day. And with that, It's time for us to go. You can send Lubby a love letter at love@latenightLove.us. You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, MeWe, and Minds. And for me and Lubby tonight, thank you for joining us. Have a good night. And please remember to love everybody.
Bye.